Okay, we'll get started. Good evening and welcome to the London School of Economics. My name is Edgar Whitley. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Management and I'll be chairing tonight's event, Supercharged HR. Who is managing your career, your boss or an algorithm? And this is an incredibly timely topic. As I was preparing my notes for this evening's event, I saw a news release, a press release about some research that had just been published claiming that firms will use artificial intelligence, i.e. algorithms, to automate parts of the human resource process within 2 years. Now, that's a very strong claim, and if you look carefully at the survey, you can immediately see, well, a piece might be automated and within 2 years, but that's not really a huge transformation. But it's certainly indicative of the kinds of changes that are likely to be forthcoming and the kinds of things that we want to talk about in today's presentations. It's really good to see so many people here coming to LSE on a cold autumn evening. We have a fantastic mix of successful alumni, friends, and also some current students here. And I think you've already had a chance to talk to the people sitting next to you for what sounds... It's going to be a really interesting alumni event. So we have a panel of distinguished speakers from academia and industry who will provide their own particular insights onto this topic, and I'm going to introduce them shortly. And after the panelists have given their presentations, we're aiming to have, if I'm a good timekeeper, plenty of time for questions and comments from the audience before we adjourn to a networking drinks outside. To begin with, just a few practicalities. As you can tell by the cameras at the back of the room and the microphones, we are intending to record this evening's event, so that it will be made available for the many people who couldn't actually be here for the event attending in person. So if you're going to ask a question that's potentially could affect your future career prospects, should we say, you might want to disguise your voice or perhaps think about asking the question at a later stage. For those of you who use Twitter, the hashtag for the event is #FutureOfHR. And if you need access to Wi-Fi, if you don't have a university access, the LSE offers Wi-Fi access via the cloud. If you are using your device, please switch it onto silent mode. We don't want pings of all your friends linking in, etc., etc. So in terms of our panelists, it's interesting, as someone whose surname is a W, I become particularly noticeable about where people's surnames list in the alphabet. If you write with people whose surnames begin with A, you know you're never going to be the first author. So it's really interesting that our panelists all have surnames in the second half of the alphabet. It's my own private obsession, don't worry. So alphabetically, we have Catalina Schwenginger, who is the Global Head of Learning at Vodafone. She has years of experience in the development of people at world-class companies, including GE and T-Mobile, and has a passion for talent acquisition and development. Michael Segala is a professor of management at HEC Paris and was formerly at McGill University, City University of New York, and Hangzhou University in China as well. And as a result, has a very particular interest in cross-cultural perspectives on his teaching and his research. And finally, alphabetically, apart from myself, we have Leila Uzlander, who is one of our own, having a global executive MBA from LSE. She is strategic account director for LinkedIn, the world's favorite social media platform. She was equally comfortable, apparently, in Chicago or London, and her expertise was honed managing brands in the worlds of retail and gaming. And finally, alphabetically at least, my own research is not in HR. It's particularly around questions of data governance and data privacy and the role that algorithms and the data that they use can play in a variety of topic areas, including for tonight's event, HR and career development. So we'll begin the discussions, the presentations with Michael, setting the scene around the use of automated tools in HR, as well as presenting the results of the various empirical studies that he's done, before we hand over to Leila and Catalina for their industry-based views on that. In order to help with timekeeping, it'd be really helpful if you don't ask any questions unless they really are questions that involve clarification until the Q&A session at the end, because otherwise we might find that one of the presentations generates 2 hours worth of questions and the other presentations don't get a chance to actually speak. So over to you, Michael.
Thank you. Do I go up to?
You can either go there or just use the
I think
clicker.
I'll do that so I can.
Okay.
I have some notes here, so I'll have a look at those. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. Great being here. It's been a long time since I've been here. I was saying earlier, that last time I was in LSE was in 1993, 94, and they were still heating the faculty club with coal. I guess those days are gone now. Okay. So it's great to be back. Okay, most people want a successful career. Okay, I'm sure all of you do also. Whether you're just starting out, you're a mid-level manager, or even if you're a senior manager looking at the calendar saying, how much time do I have left in order to get to where I want, you want to have some ideas. And the question is, where do you turn for help? Okay, I mean, traditionally you might turn to your parents, you might turn to your friends, you might turn to professionals, recruiters, etc. Where are you turning for help? Today, and increasingly, companies are going to help you by crunching massive reams of data, and it might be an algorithm that helps you. And that opens up a whole can of worms. So if that's true, welcome to the world of big data, predictive analytical algorithms, and artificial intelligence. And we should put in capitals, artificial intelligence, okay? Because artificial is something that's construed, it's created, may not be real, and a lot of computer programs, we're not sure if they're really intelligent or not. Where does that information come from? If it's programmed by a programmer, then it's a programmer's intelligence that goes into it. If it's a kind of algorithm that learns, deep machine learning, those kind of things, we don't know where that information comes from, and it could have some unpredictable outcomes. Okay. Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, okay, they make suggestions for you. If they're helpful suggestions for you, they're useful suggestions for you, great, okay. If they're not helpful suggestions, you probably just ignore them, and there's just so much clutter on the screen over there, okay. But when the algorithms are there to do something like get you a job, get you fired, get you promoted, or even more serious algorithms that are looking after your health, and looking after whether or not you go to prison or not, for how long you go to prison, looking at whether or not your car is going to kill you or kill the pedestrian in front of you, okay, then it becomes much more serious how these algorithms are working, okay. Fresh in our mind, of course, are Cambridge Analytica. I think you guys probably know more about that than I do because you lived through it over here. I was just curious about some things I looked at, these algorithms that have been hitting the news over the past 3 or 4 years. You remember the algorithm from Google that was tagging people's pictures or tagging a photo with what the photo is supposed to be? So if you showed them Eiffel Tower, it would say this is Eiffel Tower. If you saw a car, it would say this is a car. If it showed them a black person, this is a gorilla. Okay? Can you imagine anything more embarrassing? More, not even embarrassing, more frustrating than something like that? To have an algorithm that is so far wrong that it becomes insulting to large numbers of the human people? Okay, this is not appropriate at all. But this is what happened in these algorithms. Other ones, Microsoft put out an algorithm, I guess what's called of it was a chatbot, Tay. And the chatbot of Tay, some of you are knowing about this, okay, was supposed to be your favorite chatbot on the internet. You know, you go on to Facebook or wherever they're putting it, and you could talk back and forth to Tay. And so Tay started out, and her lifespan was 16 hours, what I've been told. Tay started out by saying, humans are cool. Okay, so wow, yeah, humans are cool. Are you a human? Yes, I'm a human. Are you cool? Oh yeah, I'm really cool, okay? Within 16 hours, she was saying, I, hate feminists, and they should all die and burn in hell. Okay? And Hitler was right, Okay? So in 16 hours, she went from humans are cool to statements like that. How did she learn those? Okay, she learned it because she was interacting with other humans, some of whom tried to game the system and to teach her bad habits. And so they had to pull her off, okay? So that's not so good to do that, okay? Now, these cases, and there are many, many other cases out there, are evidence that humans can maliciously abuse tools meant for good, and that AI or machine learning programs can inadvertently create havoc, okay? Now, this is you know, a new field. We're not have extensive experience yet, so we're going to have to learn how to use these kind of things. Are you comfortable with the fact that your artificial intelligence, the algorithm that make decisions about you, can be gamed to negative consequences, or that by chance the algorithm is going to do bad things? When I say by chance, it's not that some programmer programmed it to do that. Programmer is say if this, then that, something like that. It's the algorithm itself learned how to do this based upon the training data. So this is a problem for us. In medicine, I'm interested in medicine. I'm on the board of directors for a hospital in France. And so we're looking at a lot of how to use data in medicine, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff there that can really help us out. Stanford just published, a researcher at Stanford just published a study just a month or two ago about the machine learning group, in which they can look at a X-ray, and they can identify 14 different conditions and medical anomalies, we might say, and the presence of pneumonia in an X-ray better than a doctor can, better than a human can. Now, how do they do it better than a human? Because the data they have all came from humans. They analyzed the human decisions, and they did it. Well, we'll have to talk about that. At our hospital, the doctors created a robot that gives you anesthesia during an operation. The robot has had 35,000 successful operations. Okay? And you say, well, why would a robot do better than a doctor giving you anesthetic? Well, a lot of operations are long, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. In certain operations, the human gets tired. The human gets distracted. The human starts thinking about what are the kids doing, what's my wife or my husband doing, what do I have to stop by and pick up before I go home tonight? The robot doesn't. The robot keeps on looking at it, looking at it, looking at it, and the robot doesn't get tired. Okay, so in the end, they often make better decisions. So should we do that for HR? If we do it in medicine, and there's a list, there's a Harvard Review paper this summer that listed literally dozens of different kind of interventions going on. Okay, I'll give you a reference if you want. Should we do this in HR? So I'm thinking about this yesterday morning. I'm writing up the notes here. And suddenly I get a ping on my computer and I pop it open. And I get an ad from somebody that wants me to pass out to all the students at HEC all these job offers. It was a recruitment firm. They sent me an email saying, will you pass out this to your students? We got these fantastic jobs. Now, HEC, like LSC, is an elite institution. You probably don't chase after mass-produced ads for low-level jobs, and neither do our students do that. So I'm saying, whoever sent this to me clearly doesn't know the marketplace. First, I'm a professor. I'm not the Career Services Department. Secondly, you know, we don't do that, you know. Third, our students are not interested in you. So I went to LinkedIn to see who this person was. I said, well, maybe she's in my network. Maybe she's an old student. I've been there since 1991, so I got lots of students out there. And so I'm doing LinkedIn with the permission of our LinkedIn representatives here, okay? I went to LinkedIn, which is my go-to network for this, and I get an ad upper right-hand corner there. It gives me an ad for, are you interested? Here's jobs for you, okay? Now, I'm a little bit old to be searching for another career other than, you know, babysitter for grandchildren, okay? But nevertheless, I get this up there, and it says, full stack tabular.net developers wanted. This is an ideal job for you. I'm not quite sure exactly what that is, okay? So how did I get this ad, okay? So, you know, I went this morning to see if the ad was still there because I wanted to talk about it and wanted to do it accurately. And by this time, I've been moved, okay? I'm no longer full stack. Now they want to move to wrong to be in charge of some hospital medical ward, which is a little bit maybe closer to some of my experience, but clearly off target. So what happened there? Okay, one was a human who sent it to me, and by the way, I called her up. I said, hey, you know, why did you send me this ad? She says, oh, don't you remember 3 years ago at a job fair I met you and I kept your card, you know, I thought you might be interested. Oh, okay, so, well, I'm not, you're wrong, okay, but thank you. You know, leave me on your list, it's fine. Can I use this example? She says, yeah, sure. So I know her name and all that, and it's a human who targeted me. In the other case, it was a computer who targeted me. In both cases, they were wrong. What can you do, okay? Fortunately, because I was worried that HR was really far behind medicine and all that kind of stuff there, Fortunately, there's a paper out just in September from a super guy at Columbia. I look at his resume. I mean, he's like God's gift to universities. Okay, he looks fantastic on paper, and he's got a very nice paper in which he did an analysis of developing algorithms to predict good recruitments. Okay, in his analysis, he got 14% more likely to pass interviews and receive a job offer, 18% more likely to accept the offer, much more productive once hired as employees, and 12% less likely to show evidence of competing job offers during salary negotiations, which is good for the company. So he did this by training his algorithm on a big set of data. Well, Amazon did the same thing? And Amazon came up with an algorithm that discriminated against female job applicants. Why? It's because they trained their algorithm on the data of people who were successful at, or people who had applied at Amazon. And guess who's applying at Amazon? 26-year-old white computer engineers and warehouse, delivery guys. Those are the two groups, okay? And so they used data that was very homogeneous, and it built in a bias against the words that were being used in the CVs and things like that, the words that women may not use, built in a bias. This researcher in Columbia trained his data on what he calls dirty data. Lots of data, and I think it's worthwhile to actually quote this because I think it's important to have that. Okay. Non-traditional, particularly candidates who graduated from non-elite colleges, who lack job referrals, who lack prior experience, whose credentials are atypical, and who have strong non-cognitive soft skills. That means they're fun at a bar. Okay? So his data, because it was dirty, became much more accurate than having this purebred data. This is a little bit like if you breed, a horse too much with the same lineage, it develops some super good characteristics, but also develops some really bad characteristics. Here he's getting mongrel data, mixed blood data, and it produces more accurate algorithms. Okay, so I think the future is going to have these algorithms being used more and more often. I don't think we should particularly be fearful of that. How many of you have a hammer at home? Hammer? Okay. Did any of you worry, or is any of your friends worried that you're ready to murder them with the hammer? I mean, a hammer is a very effective murder tool. I mean, boom, 2 hits and it's over for the guy. Really. So it's a fantastic tool for nails and things like that. But it's it can be used viciously. Okay, so these kind of algorithms could be good tools, okay, or they could be bad tools. Depends on who and how they're used. Okay, so we'll get more experience with the algorithms, and hopefully our HR directors will be able to use those, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. If you want, can I give you how am I doing time, 10 minutes?
Got about 10 minutes left, yeah.
Can I give you the results of the survey? Okay. How many of you did this survey for me? Okay, so about half. Those of you who still want to do it, scan it. We're very modern here. You can do it right now. Okay? That leads you right to the survey. Okay. So let me give you the results about that. Now, this is data intensive, and I know I'm dealing with a very elite audience, so I put a lot of the results in the survey, but I'm going to flip through them pretty fast. If you want to see it, you can download it later on. We'll find a way so you can go through it. But I just want to give you a flavor. You spend the energy giving it. I want to give you it back so you can see what it is. So I think we have that up here online, so let's go. Okay.
That's the big version of the QR code.
There's the big version if you want to.
If your camera's not very good.
Okay. Those of you who are just doing it now, I'm going to come back to you later on. It's going to be fun for you.
With a hammer.
That's all right. That's a good sound. That's a good sound. It's the sound of compliance. Okay, ready to go? Now, very quickly, you guys are international, young, and educated. Okay, this is where you're coming from. Okay? 20% of you have a second nationality. There's where you're all coming from. This doesn't really show up as well on my screen here. Mostly male, but very respectable, 45, 55. Average age 32. Most of you have master's degrees. Where's your career stage? Well, a lot of you are just starting out, okay? 25% or so, 28% are just really starting out or in the beginning of your career. 35% are happy where you're at, which is fantastic. What's sad is almost 40% of you are unhappy. You're unhappy either and decide to go back to school, or you're unhappy you don't know what to do. You don't have a plan. Okay, so this is not good when those people who answered this questionnaire, which are you and HEC students basically, a big chunk of you are unhappy. That's not good. And plus,
and the reception will make you happier.
And then you don't have very much power. Those of you who did it, you know, I try to estimate the amount of power you had, the power, authority, or responsibility you have. And the top score is 56, and the average is 11. Okay, so most of the group is unpowered. But on the other hand, the things that are most important for you, if you leave your employer, is you want to learn, you want pride in your work, you want to have fun, you want to have a balanced lifestyle, and only then you want money. Okay? Okay? The other things that are much more important, which is similar to what we see a lot of times in other studies. Dan Pink, very famous writer and a fantastic, Dan Pink, What Motivates You, and watch what he's talking about. Very interesting. It says the younger generation, and I would say maybe even the older generation, you know, they want to be able to learn, they want to be proud of where they work, they want to have fun, they want a good work-life balance. As long as you have enough money to buy a Mercedes every year or so, then you're in good shape. Okay? Where do you get sources of information from? Those who are job changers, the ones that weren't students, okay? Most of them get it from close personal friends, a company mentor, or family and family friends. That sounds great. But if you're an HR department, or if you're the alumni association of your school, it's not so good, because the alumni associations don't come out very well in this, okay? HR department doesn't come out very well either. Okay, colleagues at work are not good. Your social network contacts like LinkedIn are not so good either for that. Okay, up here is where you'll get the best information. And for a younger graduate, it's very much the same. Close friends, contact with, you know, with a recruiter, direct recruiter, information using social media sites. It's information about what the sources of job information. In order to find a first job, direct application, you bypass all these guys down here, go directly to the website. Okay, close personal friends, professional recruiters. Okay, so for those associations and services and the universities, they're not really helping you out as much as other sources are helping you. Even the poor professors don't get really very well graded. Okay. Early career recruitment, the important thing about this is I ask questions like, you know, do you have experience with online facial expression analysis? You know, where they watch your face and decide whether or not you're telling the truth, or you're honest, or what's your personality type, those kind of things. Using predictive algorithm to assess my promotion. Okay, this is what companies like Cornerstone On Demand create these kind of algorithms. And we'll talk more about that later on. Online written assessments. Okay, these things here, the young recruits, early career, didn't know if they used, or maybe they did, they did not use it, maybe they did use it. This down here, most of them knew something about this, but the interesting point from this is that what was their experience with these different categories? And by and large, remember, 80 people did this, 56 usable or 58 usable, 56 usable respondents. Now it's over 100 have done it. I'll redo it to update it for you all. So this is a small count, okay? So maybe not representative, but interesting that people like human interactions. They have the best experience when they're dealing with other humans and not when they're dealing with machines. Okay? So from that perspective, important. Now, is it the same for older people? Okay, let's see. Older people, exactly the same. The difference between the old and the young is that the older people have no idea about this technology. At least some of you knew a little bit about it, okay? They didn't have any idea about that technology, but they still like human interactions. So this technology, I don't think is ever going to replace human interaction. It will only help it. It will only act as an advice or as additional information. Now, I just showed you this quickly. I don't want you to focus on each one of these, but these were the things I said. Do you agree with this technology? Automatic search of your social media, using all digital data to set remuneration, facial analysis. Down here, digital monitoring behavior and activity outside of work hours. Okay, now the thing to see is this is the way it goes there, and then down here. And the thing to see is that down here, you're really red. That means, we don't think that's right. Okay? So you can't digitally monitor me outside of work hours. You can't digitally monitor my bio data, okay, out of work hours. You can't even do it when I'm in work, okay? What can I do? Well, you can search my social media at recruitment time. Everybody seems to be more or less okay with that. You can even use all that data to give me more money. Okay, that's good. Okay. Facial recognition, voice analysis, okay, I can deal with that. Then after that, we start to go down a little bit, okay? There's a lot more nuance. Now what's interesting about this is that green is great, red is bad, okay? But let's see who is saying to green versus who is saying to red. The boss says, search social media is good. The worker says, no, it's not. The boss says facial recognition and voice analysis is good. The worker says, no, it's not. The boss says digital monitoring behavior activity during working hours is good. The worker says, I don't think so. And digital monitoring of biodata, it's your heartbeat, your physical activity, things like that. Stress levels, if you can measure that. Boss says, that's good also. Okay? Wire you up like astronauts so they know everything happening to you. Okay? Individual said no. Okay, so we got a big divide here between what the high power holders say is good and what the less high power holders say is good. Oops. This just shows the examples of what I just showed. So high power versus low power. So that's the proof. You can look at that later. Using recorded but unused data. Now we move into the future here a little bit. Organizations typically have lots and lots of data, okay, that doesn't get used. We often call that dark data, okay? It's there, it's recorded. Maybe it's in an awkward format, okay, so we're not using that, okay? What if some of this data measured employee activity or behavior? Just published recently, online, they're trying to use algorithms to detect cheating on the GREs or GMAT exams that are done online. And they're going to measure things like the rhythm of your typing to figure out whether it's you or not. Okay? Think about that. Rhythm of your typing, which they can measure the rhythm of your typing. Okay? And they're going to try to identify whether or not you're gaming the system, cheating or not. So this is interesting kind of technology that can be used. Is it appropriate to use all this data for recruitment, remuneration, promotion, termination decisions? That's the big question right now. There's lots and lots out there. 2 or 3 articles in Harvard Business Review over the last 3 or 4 months. Very interesting. Some say behavior is a powerful determinator between top and less talented. You remember the 7 habits of highly effective people by Covey, I think it was? Okay. Do you think behavior is a good indicator of a good manager? Little poll. Is the behavior something that's important to know about for your top managers? I mean, behavior versus what? Maybe that's easier. Behavior versus results. We'll come back to this later on. Behavior, results. Because what I did for my HEC students, this is the MBA class, 159 or something like that. Students came in, and this was their very first seminar. The first week is a NEGOSEAM, it's a simulation. They should all be very highly engaged. You know, they haven't been there for very long. On Sunday, I send them an assignment to do. I know I'm going to see them on Wednesday and on Friday. I send on Sunday, hi, welcome here, we're getting ready to start. Please do this short questionnaire. I'm going to look at the data and bring it back to you, and we'll use it for the class. So they know it's part of the course. Only 116 of them did it. 2/3, more or less. Okay? Interesting. I'm going to analyze the actual nationalities of the ones who did do it. Okay, but what I found, this is day 1. Here I launched it at about 1:30. Okay? At 2 o'clock, somebody's already answered it. Okay, right away. Nationality, who do you think that it was? What nationality?
German.
You guys, you're too easy. It was an Italian. Why do you laugh? Everybody knows Italians are on time, okay? And you can see every hour by more and more and more and more did it. End of the first day, this is like at midnight. I got 37 of them, about 40%, 45% already done it the first day. I got some people who are doing it at 1 o'clock in the morning. Is this somebody you want to work with? Somebody don't we say health and wellness? You need to sleep out 7, 8 hours of sleep, otherwise you're not going to be a good manager. Second day goes by, more did it done. Okay, this shows the hour in which they submitted the assignment. Occasionally we also had some guys at midnight over there. Okay, and then these guys here, the last one, the very last guy did it about 5 minutes before the class. I won't tell you that nationality. So can I use this data, which is normally never used, and say, these are high engagement workers, these are average engagement workers, these are low engagement workers, and here's the guy I'm going to fire? or not hire, okay? So that's the question. We'll get into this later, okay? But I thought it would be interesting to see that. Good tech, bad tech. Top 3 reasons to welcome digital technology, according to you all. Give employees new options, that's the top. Very accurate more accurate career orientation, very helpful for employees. Top 3 reasons to reject it. Interesting. Illegal under current EU data privacy regulations, which is not true. We need to teach them what those regulations are. It takes about 2 weeks to learn that and thousands of pages. Likely to give the wrong advice. The future will be different from the past. Not personalized to my situation. Now what's funny about this, take a look at this. They're saying, this gives me more information, this is good, this is not good. Okay? So what they're saying there is that half of them more or less said, this is going to be giving me more options, more information. The other half said, can't possibly rewrite, it's based upon data from the past. The past does not predict the future. Of course, no facts don't predict the future either. Okay? Facts can help you predict a little bit of the future, but not having facts just is the sign of a charlatan who just makes things up. Okay. So, key takeaways. HR department, London Side Associations, school career centers, not good sources of information about jobs. Social network contacts are not considered effective sources of information. Both younger and older, lower level, higher level, do not fully embrace these technology tools. Senior level managers do like them, okay? Your bosses like them. And about half of the respondents thought AI career management was good, and the other half thought not. I'm going to turn it over to you for discussion because we have some really top experts on that over here to decode these results. And I thank you all for answering the questionnaire.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael, for some really fascinating research. Let's now move over to Layla from LinkedIn, who will talk about a slightly different perspective on the evolving landscape of European recruitment.
Hello. Is the clickers over here?
Yeah, it's right there on the little shelf.
Hello. So yeah, I am going to, oh, there's my face. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about the evolving landscape in recruitment. As you know, I work at LinkedIn, and I work with large global organizations, usually based in the UK, to help them leverage our network to make strategic business decisions, everything from that to recruit top talent. So I'm going to talk about 3 different trends in the industry right now. And these 3 trends are AI and automation, the skills gap, and independent work. So we've partnered with McKinsey Global Institute and used a lot of LinkedIn data to kind of to gain these insights and to kind of share these 3 trends. And as we're in the kind of heart of the 4th industrial revolution, as they're calling it, we're seeing kind of a range of interconnected technologies that are combining our physical world and the virtual one. And so basically, what we know about, so if we go and dig into the first one, they kind of AI and automation. What we know is that 46% of activities across the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain are susceptible to automation. So, and that's a McKinsey Global Institute stat. And that's today. So if, you know, that's today right now. So if we actually think about how early on we are in this journey, what will happen in the future, I think is really what we need to think about. So specifically the industries that we're seeing this impact: manufacturing, retail, trade, hospitality, transportation, and generally what we're expecting, it's an active debate whether how much this is going to change the kind of the industry, the job landscape, all that stuff. But what we know is that middle skill industries are being impacted today. So if you look at the banking is a really easy one to kind of look at and analyze. If you look at high street banking and how much that's changed in recent history, everything from high street banking to just kind of online banking. We're expecting this trend to continue, and outside of that sector too. This is further validated by our own research. So we do the largest survey of its kind of job seekers and recruiters, and it's called the Talent Trends Survey. And what we know is 69% of recruiters across Europe believe that AI will help them save time to source candidates. 57% believe that it will help with automated sourcing. So, but there is a big but there. 63% of these individuals feel that relationships will still remain key in the recruitment industry. So now I'll get into kind of the skills gap. And the reason why LinkedIn and why kind of I care about the skills gap is because we have a lot of data about it. We have a lot of data that, that can help us kind of understand where the skills gaps lie. But not only that, we also have a lot of data around intention. So people's intentions to think about their next role, people's intentions to think about promotion or movement from one company to the next. So there are many skills gaps. You know, there's gaps between supply and demand and specific skills, and then there's also gaps in locations, gaps in labor markets, gaps at a specific point in time. So I'll kind of go over a few specifically just so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about here. So if you were to look at Amsterdam, for example, there is a skills gap right now with mobile developers. Amsterdam, as many of you might know, is a big tech hub right now. So we have Booking.com there, for example, that's hiring mobile developers in a big way. And we know, based on LinkedIn data, that there is a skills gap there for them. Then if we were to zoom into Stockholm, H&M, Spotify, both based there, and web development is an area where there is a major skills gap there. And if we were to zoom in right here in London, web programming skills like Ruby, Python, Perl, those are all areas where there is a major skills gap here in London. And basically, you know, you can look at it across Europe. These are the largest skills gaps in each city in Europe. So what are the reasons behind these skills gap? Number one, low supply. So technology is moving so quickly that we have not upskilled through education our workforce of today for the needs of businesses today. Number two, lack of mobility. So I think it seems like people are willing to move and people are more mobile than they ever have, but actually people are less, this is the most static people have remained since World War II right now. And then finally, information asymmetry. So not being able to access either not being able to, not understanding where that talent lies, that talent might exist, but not being able to get to it, it's mostly about not being able to get to the talent. So how do people identify these things? And that's kind of a question that companies are thinking about right now is, they need these skills to get their businesses going, and how do they actually access it? So the final trend I'll talk about is independent work and the rise of independent work. So what I mean by that are freelancers, short-term contractors, and the gig economy. This is obviously a huge trend. In this room, how many of you guys do any sort of independent work? So that would probably be shocking to a lot of people. That's a lot. That's a large percentage of you that are doing some sort of independent work. How many of you would consider doing independent work? Okay, so that's almost the rest of everyone. So there are 90 million independent workers right now in the EU. So that represents 26% of the workforce, and as many as 140 million people in the EU 15 would want to get involved with independent work. What are the reasons behind this trend? Number one, the rise of millennials. So millennials are, by 2025, expected to be 75% of the global workforce. The second thing is that there is a marketplace for them. There is a place for independent work that fits into our economy. And finally, companies are realizing that independent workers are increasingly cost-effective and fit into their models. So when we talk about how immobile if we were to connect one of the points from the second trend, how people are not able to be mobile, but they are able to virtually log in. They are able to virtually help. This is where we can plug in independent work into kind of the lack of accessing talent. So 50% of European recruiters believe that the need for contractors will rise over the next 5 years. So even though these numbers are really high, 120 million people are interested in it, we still believe that we require more. So yeah, these are the three trends, and you guys we can talk about it further when we get to the panel point, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of background on what we're working on at LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you. Really interesting, and that cues up Catalina's work in Vodafone quite nicely, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Tough gig to follow, and I'm not just talking about the boots, guys. So, good evening. How's the energy level? I'm the last, I think, between you and drinks and the panel. So, I think looking through the deck before, I was thinking, gosh, this is death by PowerPoint, and definitely death by statistics tonight. But I was briefed that you guys are an incredibly intelligent and engaged audience. So I will throw more statistics at you. And I think the end maybe, I hope you paid attention because we'll be quizzing you, right? This is how your short memory works. But joke aside, Catalina, I've been with Vodafone for, I think, 5 years, and I lead the learning function. And I think every time I go to work in the morning, I think this is the most exciting time to be in a learning function because, it's a tough gig out there, it's hard to attract talent, and we figured based on recent research by LinkedIn, by Professor Bursin of Deloitte, that it costs about 6 times less to grow your own than to hire new people. Right? So this is why I think learning, both academic and corporate learning, is in the best time of a century. But before I moved to my learning role, I headed up employer brand recruitment, and so I worked a lot with LinkedIn and used a lot of their great data to attract talent, and I specifically focused on the youth segment. And why is youth segment? And just by definition, what we kind of changed the definition of youth segment. First we said under 25, and then we said actually under 30s. First we said millennials, but then we said actually millennials are growing old now, so let's at Generation Z. And why we did that? We did it for a couple of reasons. First of all, obviously we are a commercial organization, and yeah, we do have a lot of data, and unfortunately, we are not allowed by law to use it because we know who you called yesterday and how many minutes and what you said. Only if we have a warrant can we use that, right? So like LinkedIn, we are a company that has lots of data. And some of the data was telling us that we are not capturing the hearts and minds of the youth out there for many reasons. Maybe because we are perceived as a big corporate boring brand. Maybe we're too expensive in some of our propositions. And so the brand perception when we went out there and looked at our commercial youth segment was, we're not exactly top of their mind. Secondly, is obviously we're after this youth because they come with amazing digital skills and knowledge that we need in the digital transformation. And again, we're not attractive enough. And thirdly, we thought, gosh, there's so much stuff going out there. Look at Europe, right? You don't have to go too far from home to look at Spain and Greece, where more than 45% of youngsters who graduate are not employed. And are not just employed the first year, not employed even the fourth year after they graduate. I was in Greece the other day with Singularity University. I gave a talk there, and I'm not kidding, there were 400 young people in the audience, all PhD and masters. And I asked them, raise a hand, who knows what you're going to be doing when you graduate? How many people do you think raise their hand? Two. Two. And that says, a lot about, obviously, they were Greek, in Greece it's tough going. So, and we thought, as a large employer, and we hire about 100,000 people directly and about 200,000 indirectly in our stores and call centers. We felt that we have to play a stronger, to play our part in society and help these young people. We won't be able to hire all of them and solve the unemployment crisis in Europe and beyond, but we should be doing something and start creating this movement of getting the other corporates to look at, youth employment with a more responsible way. We've done a lot of research. We look at our numbers. We did a lot of focus groups in all our markets. We are now in 26 countries, from India to South Africa, Lesotho to obviously UK and almost in all countries in Europe. So we've done a lot of research and said, what is that thing? What is the thing that will make youth love us? And at the same time, what is the thing that we can do to help youth navigate the digital world, get employment, and kind of get out of this this loop that we're going. So let me show you now, because I thought, instead of putting a PowerPoint in, we like a video. So we have a video telling you what is research that we've done with YouGov. We commissioned some research, as well as with our internal marketing team. What are the numbers telling us about what's going on right now with digital skills and the youth unemployment? Let me see if I can start this thing here.
Last.
Question, how can we make this happen? And I think there's a beautiful and boring consistency from what Professor Segala was showing earlier on how you guys don't think that you get enough career advice and what the research showed, right? So there was a theme there that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of talk about digital skills and how you can't have stack developers in Stockholm and I don't know, C++ in London. However, people who have those digital skills still can't get employment. So to summarize, what we've seen in the report, a lack of, a cry for lack of guidance, a lack of trust in business, which is really interesting. Edelman does this trust report every year, and that number goes, it's higher than, luckily still, young people still trust corporates more than they trust governments, but 33% is still a shocking number to think about, and hence a lot of you guys want to be independent, right? Because you're kind of fed up with big corporates, you want to be on your own, you want to be your own boss. And another one that struck me, it's not just about employment, it's about decent employment. It's not just about working in Starbucks or working, anywhere, just working somewhere where you're respected, where you have, when you earn according to the effort that you put in. When I was in Greece last time, my driver is a lovely guy who spoke about 4 languages, 35 years of age. He was a university graduate. He said, how lucky I am. This is my first job after 5 years of unemployed. I was going crazy, right? He was a limo driver, and he was having the time of his life because finally he had a job, right? I wouldn't call it a decent job, right? I would have expected him to do, something more at his level, but again, for him that was decent enough. So again, all of this stuff, we kind of put our heads together. We worked with people from marketing, people from HR, from the business, and we said, okay, let's figure out what we can do in this digital world to kind of marry the demand that's increasing in digital skills and the fact that we have unemployment going on. And let's do something that we give back to society rather than doing something that we will increase our revenue, right? So this is basically how the tool that we created looks like. We've launched in March in Brussels with our CEO, with a couple of people from the Commission. We're obviously, in the European Commission, it's youth unemployment and youth skills gap is also a big topic. So we launched that, and we've been kind of going from strength to strength since then. But let me show you how it looks like. Another video. The question we're trying to answer is, what will you be? As you can see, this is kind of a digital, 100% digital tool that's kind of your personal career guide. It's not powered by AI. It's an algorithm based on the science that goes behind psychometric testing, looking at your preferences, your skills, your strength, and then matching those with what's out there in terms of jobs. So it's filtering them nicely for you and getting up, all the relevant ones. And they might be jobs at Vodafone, but maybe there are jobs at LinkedIn or at LSE. It plugs into a lot of job boards out there, Indeed being the most important one. And it also links you to, whether if you have a couple of skill gaps, as you've seen there, nobody's perfect, nobody knows everything 100%, then it points you to stuff like Coursera or Udemy or other online sources of content to kind of get yourself upskilled, right? And it does it basically in a couple of minutes. On top of that, I think the cherry on the pie is it writes the top end of your CV. And I'm not sure about you, I still struggle. You know, I've been in this business for 20 years, I still struggle to write a nice punchy CV with a headline. So that does it for you without you having to intervene in it. Right, so again, we thought we were up for something, and we like a big number at Vodafone. So we set ourselves a target to reach 10 million young people. To do that across 15 countries by 2020, with a mission of giving them, you know, the resources to navigate the digital world, and why not find first what they're great at, because a lot of young people, you know, they come after school and they actually don't know, you know, what their strengths, superpowers are, and then ultimately finding employment that suits them, their personality, their expectations, their skill, and so forth. So how are we doing? We're not doing too bad, actually. We've done a massive media campaign in the beginning, and we've done a lot of PR that generated a lot of media, social media interactions. We're almost at 350,000 young people who actually completed the first assessment. There's more assessments. The first is the minimum one. The more assessments you take, the more accurate it becomes. You can also try it. Futurejobfinders. What is it? Vodafone.job. Future Job Finder. Here you go. Lauren's the product owner for that, so she'll give you a guidance afterwards on how to get it. But what we're very excited about, that already 1.2 million careers have been recommended, right? And unlike the career recommendations that Professor Segala was getting this morning, these are pretty accurate and pretty, you know, suitable for your profile. Again, only in the digital space, so they won't tell you you can be a doctor or a nurse. We actually have a filter powered by ONET, which is a database of jobs in US. So it only filtered because we figured this is a big opportunity, and we are also experts in digital. We're not experts in everything. You know, again, massive, really, really impressive to see how we, you know, the reaction of markets, the press, universities, kids, given us a lot of great feedback. We got a lot of great press, and a lot of companies. What's more interesting is, companies came to us, even competitors said, you know, this is really cool, can we use it? And we're saying, you know, of course we build that with a psychometric provider and with Indeed, sorry LinkedIn, your competition, but we're very happy to kind of share that with the world, because the more people reach it, the more people use it, the better I think everybody is. So we want to play that kind of role in society. And why I picked this example? First of all, because it you know, obviously it ties nicely into what LinkedIn and Professor Segala was sharing before. Also because, you know, I take every opportunity when I go to schools to speak, to promote this, because I really feel that, you know, it's something that we have to share and promote out there to help more young people get orientated. And we're going to evolve the product. So in true agile style, we get more feedback about the content, about the experience online, about the stuff, you know, the stuff that we're recommending. So we are evolving that, and we will change it and make sure that it grows also with the speed of the digital world, right? If you look at the roles that we were looking last year have already changed by this year. There's new opportunities in the digital world that now we'll have to kind of build in the algorithm. And one last thing before we break out for questions. Initially, we were actually thinking of adding another tool, which is very interesting because we killed it because of the bad press that came with the Cambridge Analytica scandal. So we had initially actually partnered with Professor Kaczynski formerly from Cambridge University, now with Stanford, who built a tool that's called Applied Magic Sauce, which is actually looking at your Facebook activity and likes and can predict with a pretty freaky high level of accuracy what your personality is. There actually, Professor Kaczynski was saying, you know, if you have 50 likes, the accuracy of your personality is similar to what an acquaintance will give you. 250 will give you the accuracy of your spouse or partner. And that's pretty awesome. And if you think about it, you know, when you take a test, a psychometric test, you're actually saying what you like and what you dislike. When you like a Heineken on Facebook, you're doing exactly the same, or you like someone's post or someone's pictures. So there is a lot of science, and this is not hokey pokey. This is really real stuff that goes into that. But we decided to kill that because of all this sentiment around how companies are misusing the activity on social media for commercial or political purposes on things like that. So again, another learning. As we were about to launch and build the prototype, it looked amazing. We actually killed it because we thought it's a better good, and we took that ethical approach of, you know, let's not go into to this area. But you can still check it out. I think applymagicsauce.com is the site if they haven't killed it by then. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully we'll have lots of, I'm very sure, very smart questions and tough questions tonight.
Thank you. So we've had a fantastic set of presentations. Just looking at the number of people taking photos of the slides is a really good proxy. We will make sure we've got a way of sharing the presentations and the updated version of the analysis afterwards, so that you don't have to be scribbling things down. The other thing I particularly picked up was the pride that the speakers have in the work that they're doing. These are jobs that people really care about and really interested in, want to share what they've learned and their experiences with everybody. As an academic, I could just spend the next few hours just talking about my own particular interests and my own particular research questions around this, but that's not the purpose of an event with an audience. So I'll just have one thought that I just want to add. We did have some prepared questions, but I think we're running to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions from the audience. We'll go to those. The one thing I was particularly thought about with Catalina's point was this idea of thinking that some of the data that you might be collecting would be freaky. And that's a really interesting one, because that ties in exactly with Michael's survey results about what the employees don't like, but the bosses do. So the bosses want to be freaky and track everything. And the employees, which is kind of everybody has a boss, so everybody's sort of an employee, don't feel that comfortable. And associated with that is the whole misperceptions around what Facebook and Cambridge Analytica were doing, and how possibly people have woken up to the kinds of opportunities that analytics can provide, and questions about how do you govern those kinds of activities in ways that don't lead to unduly freaky or unduly inaccurate kinds of considerations. But let's open the floor to questions. I would ask, just as a simple thing, if you can introduce yourselves first and ask either a brief question or a brief comment. And questions have a question mark at the end, otherwise they are comments. So we had two in the white. Just got a microphone coming, just.
Thank you very much. This is Philippe Gillet. I did the HEC MBA, so we've met before. Very interesting topic today, and I think that most of the things related to what we can do or can't do is based on trust. I think that, for example, I saw in the past that people were more open to share data or personal information if they saw the benefit and the value from it. And the example, Catalina, you just showed demonstrate that you can bring benefit to people. Those youngers who can find accurate training for developing their career, they see the benefit, so they are more likely to give information. But have you thought about, for example, applying it for people who are already working in Vodafone for the development of their career? So not only for youngers or new joiners, but also for people who are within the company who would like to develop their career. Because I think that that's a tool that could definitely work for that purpose too.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. We figure after we build this tool that we're better doing it for the world than doing it for ourselves. So we're looking, A, to either take this tool and use it internally, or B, actually, I've just met this amazing startup with two fabulous French women who live in Berlin and build this chat, career bot, which is pretty cool as well. So we're looking at a couple of things. And to your point, yeah, I mean, there was one of the questions, is your manager better than a bot, giving you career advice? My belief is that we better have an algorithm and a bot to do it than allow mediocre managers to do it, right? So having a bot is better than having no career advice at all, or having a manager that is clueless in giving you career advice. So because of that, I think at Vodafone we are definitely looking either building this tool for internal people or doing something else with a startup to give people advice in a more, let's say, structured way with an algorithm.
Leila, I think you do a little bit of this internally. Do you want to talk very briefly about?
Yeah, we do. Specifically, we use a tool that actually allows us to play games. And basically what the tool does is you play a game and answer questions based on, basically you answer as quickly as possible. There's quite a few different kind of layers of this game. And what happens at the end of this is all the results are collected, and then it's aligned with people's performance. So then all of a sudden, first of all, internally, we can map where high performers are and the way that they respond to specific games, and then align it with potentially new people that to remove bias from a recruitment perspective. So before they even come in, they'll play the game, and we can kind of understand if they're going to be a high performer, maybe even if they don't perform well in an interview. But also internally, I think we are thinking about then redistributing it back to managers to then help them understand, areas where internal people can work, how they can give better advice, how they can push their team to their, to their full potential, et cetera.
Right. Can I add just something quickly about that? 20 years ago in Switzerland, we had a meeting of about 20 high-level HR directors coming there. And the guy coming from the Netherlands, from the postal services in the Netherlands, presented a tool that was there to measure your potential. You would go online, you would answer the questions, and if you passed the level, you'd go up another level. Then you would keep on going up levels, and eventually you got to a level where they would offer you something. But if you failed, you were kicked out of the system. So when you got to your level of incompetence, you were jettisoned. And it was totally debilitating for people, because they said, I invested 10 hours or 20 hours to see the best I could be, and I was kicked out because I'm not good enough. So we need tools that are a little bit more user-friendly than that. Yep.
In the red shirt.
My name's Adi Gaskell. I've got a question for Leila, if I can. You mentioned there are 90 million independent workers in Europe. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn have ProFinder, which is limited to the US, and LinkedIn Gigs, which I think was limited to Phoenix in the US. What are the plans to offer these services in Europe?
Yeah, that's on our product roadmap. So we're working towards being able to recruit and create a platform around contract employees. We're also investing quite a bit into communities. So Groups was a product that we, that we still have, but we have moved away from when it comes to investment, I would say. So you'll see quite a new kind of revival of groups and creating more of a community atmosphere on LinkedIn. So to help basically independent workers come together, share information, share knowledge, and upskill themselves.
Next question. Microphone's coming from the left. Couple more.
Hi. Coming back to the topic of the discussion today, do you really think that the AI will replace at some point or be a significant part of the recruitment process, just given the results about the interaction between personal interaction? That's my question. And then the comment I'd like to make is I a little bit disagree with the result and your interpretation of the result when you say that the manager would like to really see all the digital data on the employee, and this is because they don't trust the employee. I actually think that given that companies moving towards agile working and they actually care about the employees more, so they actually want to know whether employee is really feeling well, whether he's happy at his work. And this is it might be different interpretation of this result. So managers being a little bit more mature and understanding better their employees and giving them more opportunities by knowing more about their employees.
If I can respond to that, 2 years ago, I was working with Intel and iHealth Labs Europe, and we gave people trackers. I went to the MBA program at HEC, executive and the full-time, and I offered anyone who wanted one a tracker. Okay, and I said the goal of this is to see whether or not your sleep, your activity, and your stress levels, which we measure through heartbeat, have any effect on your grades. Okay, and they sign consent. I could have their grades at the end, and to see that, because in the business world, there's an interesting study between Stanford and Harvard, Pfeiffer at Stanford and Goy at Harvard. They looked at these health and wellness programs in the United States, and they found that on average, of all the 250 that they looked at or something like that, they provided about $150 of value per capita, per user, which is about the cost of the equipment, which means that they were a net wash. And you say, well, why is that? Why, you know, there a lot of companies are on the bandwagon, health and wellness. We want you to be well. We want to track that. What's the indicator that they have? What's the variable that they're measuring against? They can't measure against efficiency. They can't measure it against higher performance. You know, what do they measure against? They measure against number of sick days, because the only number they can get. So I said, well, let's do it in the university, because in the university we have 10, 15 professors. We have you for 9 months. We have all these data points on you. We'll figure it out. Okay. Now, we were never able to complete the study because Intel's watch, called the Basis, was taken off the market because it was burning a few people at night. So they cost them $100 million. They took it off the market. All the data was gone. iHealth Labs, which they didn't burn people at night. iHealth Labs data was the whole database was restructured because of GDPR rules, and they lost most of the data. I mean, they gave me the data of my students walking around, and one of them had done 12 million steps in one day, and I said, hey, what's going on here? So still, it's a great study, and maybe we can do it here at LSC, okay? But that's the idea, that we want to know about that, and I think it's good, the point you made.
Thanks. Shall I repeat my question, or you remember?
Yeah, I think the first question, I believe the answer is yes, algorithms will replace the first stage of recruitment. And I tell you why that's a good thing. Because look what's happening right now, and I've been a recruiter all my life, and how many times I caught myself, or I didn't catch myself actually, imply my bias on the way I select it, yeah? So I always have the bias towards people who speak more languages, who lived abroad, who went to a certain school, because we are human beings and we prefer some people versus others. So that's definitely not better than when you have a formula that's a better formula than Amazon, who I'm actually, I'm really disappointed because I thought, you know, they know their data and they have their data scientists, so obviously they blew that one. And you are better off having more chances, and the recruitment process can become more inclusive, and simply just more is better. Because recruiters don't have the physical time to go through all the applications, and they force ranked on their own beliefs and values. Whereas an algorithm is actually giving everybody a chance to be part of the process. So, and because of automation, because of cost cutting, because of all these other reasons, bad or good, algorithms will take over, and they are taking over in a lot of companies, guys. That's happening right now, right? And it's been happening for a couple of years already. This is not science fiction anymore. But it's just the first bit, because the human interaction come afterwards, and the judgment is ultimately of a human being, right or wrong. The first sifting or stuff, that's automated, and then AI and video recognition and all that good stuff is now coming in, and it's taken over, especially large companies.
So I have a slightly different perspective, because I if the AI is just automating an implicit algorithm that you just haven't articulated, then the question comes, what's the difference between the first sifting and the full employment decision? Because you have the person in front of you, there is a finite, presumably, set of data points. Some of it might be microfacial movements, some of it will be languages spoken, how they approach you, etc. So I think the question of where the AI boundary is going to be is about how much money you can save by essentially working through and articulating precisely why that candidate was a good candidate and that candidate was a not such a good candidate. And at the moment you can do some simple ones, and that's that first stage, because it was quite difficult even to get round to saying, now really, why did you decide this person over that person? And also, was your judgment correct? Because it turned out that you hired the wrong person because you had some other things. And it's, I think a key part of that is about articulating what exactly it is that you need to do, what your choice criteria are. And it gets really interesting. If you are looking at just a photograph of an X-ray, the only data points that you could possibly include are the pixels on the X-ray. If you are looking at a person with all of their behaviors, all of their backgrounds, all of their experiences, that one time I did something that I never wrote down in my CV but still turned out to be really good for a job, it becomes much more difficult to get that all-encompassed kind of viewpoint. But that's just my background, my thoughts. Another question in the front.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Fiona.
Microphone's just coming.
Thanks. I have two questions. My name is Fiona. I'm a psychologist, organisational psychologist. So I'm interested in two things, and both questions are for Catalina. Just in relation to what we've just been saying about algorithms, you're using them for that initial sifting. And is there any evidence to date, and this possibly is for all of you, that you're missing out on some key data? Some of the algorithms are missing out on key data, and therefore you're missing, potentially missing people who would be very good at a job in the initial sifting?
I'm sure we might, just like we were doing before when we're not using algorithm. What we're trying to do, so we specifically using, and I don't want to call it AI because it's really just an algorithm. We work with a video interview company that also has kind of the first level of machine learning working on them. But what we're doing with them, before we launched the algorithm, we actually used exactly the same methodology that we use when we're designing psychometric testing. So we're doing all the validity and predictability studies. And what we're doing right now, we go to the next level and always update the algorithm based on data. So it's not just a one-off, because then we're pretty sure that we might have lost a couple of elements. So we're always doing that. And we also do another thing, because we are so worried and so crazy around bias and all of that, super careful. So we also have a human going through the reds and the yellows and going, okay, let's look at, for example, of all the women that are in the yellow section. Yeah, they just were under the cut-through. Have we missed out on any good talent? So in addition to that, we're doing that. We're having the human intervention. So we haven't gone full-blown 100% trust the algorithm, because we believe that there is still a probability that we're missing out. And it's about the size of the data lake. The more we're doing this, the more data we'll have, the more relevant the algorithm will be. So it will be a point in a couple of years when we're trusting it completely, because we see that it delivers. Until it, so an equivalent, you're an occupational psychologist, an equivalent of working with SHL, who have gazillion of data, versus working with a new psychometric provider who's just had 2 or 3 customers with a couple of thousand candidates. So this is the way we look at it. We took let's say a very conservative approach. Other companies have been bolder, and they just go, I don't care anymore, just algorithm.
So the weak points, in fact, you do have people looking at the yellow candidates and saying the algorithm may have missed something, and you're changing it. That's interesting. My second question is different, because you spoke, in talking about future jobs finder, you spoke about young adults who don't know their strengths, and and say that they actually didn't know what jobs were out there in the digital and in the digital age. And I'm wondering, are you feeding back into education? Are you feeding back into schools as to the subjects? Because I'm quite interested in this as to sort of the traditional subjects that we continue to teach children, even in private schools, and particularly in private schools where people are still studying, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, still studying Latin and Greek and Roman civilization in an era when they're leaving school and then they're needing to find jobs in the industrial age that Leila was talking about. And so I'm wondering, are any of you, the four of you, speaking at schools?
That's a great question. So we just launched it in March, and obviously, we get more and more data. I think on a country-by-country level, we have great relationship with universities and academia and schools, and locally we're starting this dialogue, and we're going to use this data to inform the curriculum. I can't tell you we're doing it globally yet, because again, the data is very fresh. But what we are doing, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Life Skills program from Barclays. We think they're extraordinary. We actually got inspired when we created this tool. But what Barclays do, they go to schools. So they have Barclays employees who volunteer in their free time, and they go to schools and teach students life skills of everything, not just about banking, about digital and everything. Again, they do it because they feel that there is a gap in the education system, and they feel there is their role in society to help young people, right? So I think level 2 for us, it will be to have this human interaction, take the results of the job finder and go to schools and talk to them about, the skills you have to learn in addition to influencing the education system.
And I can just share from a LinkedIn perspective, our kind of mission and vision all centers around a concept called the economic graph. So what we do with all of our data is basically think about, we have over 550 million members, 20 million schools, all these skills that these members have shared with us, where they're working, the companies they're working at, the companies they used to work at, the schools they went to, all this stuff. And the way this all interacts really becomes a digital representation of the professional workforce. And when I talked about skills gaps, that's the economic graph information that feeds into that. But what our economic graph team does and our education team does is it partners with universities. I will say in the US, the relationships are a lot closer than they are throughout the rest of the world, but partners with universities to share with them really where these gaps lie, and helps them build curriculums to upskill the students of today for the future careers of tomorrow.
Okay.
Can I say something about this topic? I'm so sorry.
Yep.
Maybe it's just my misunderstandings, but actually I studied Greek and Latin, and I decided to do that. Because I think that schools are not just to create workers, they improve people. And so I didn't went to school, I didn't decide to do this master just to be a better worker or to have the right skills to work. I decided to study for myself, not for the future business, also to have a job, obviously, but I don't think that school is just for workers or for business. It's also for people. So,
can I just? I love the point. I love your point. Can I just say, in my defense, my daughter is a classicist. She studied Greek and Roman civilization and speaks lots of languages. And I love your point.
I can tell you that my years in Latin were so great that if you can learn Latin, you can learn any programming language.
I'm very conscious that we want to move.
There was a gentleman here who's had his hand up a couple of times.
Okay.
It's just he's not blonde, so.
Hi, I'm Joshka from the Human Resource stream here at LSE. First of all, thank you very much for being here and taking the time to inform us a bit more about this. I had a question particularly at you, Dr. Whitley. I understand that there's lots of potential. The potential of AI is limited. You just have to look at the McKinsey reports recently. It's, especially in the human resource area, it shows a lot less bias. It can be a very efficient thing. It's basically limitless. But I'd say the biggest problem for companies these days is establishing trust in these mechanisms. You can't have Tim Cook say, oh, this is so worrisome, you need to like be careful with how we're going to be using your data. And then as I look up from my phone, I'm looking at an Apple Watch used by Vitality Insurance to track me in my private life for a benefit scheme. And I think one of the big issues is that companies need to show us where they're drawing the line, how far this is allowed to go. Because yes, we could use it for recruitment and I think it's beneficial there. But tracking your employee at work slowly crosses that work-life balance, from my opinion. And I think companies need to take a proactive step to showing us where they are willing to draw the line so that we can engage in an argument. Right now, it seems like a very one-sided dialogue of people saying, we want a line, and companies saying, oh, but look at all the potential. They're not aware that we want a line of how far this will go. So my question is, do you think companies are aware that they have this responsibility or that this would help them gain acceptance of these digital analytics?
So I think companies are smart enough to know that, because you'd have to be stupid to not. Whether you can persuade your marketing team that that's where you need to draw the line, because there are big groups that say any data, every data, anything we can possibly grab is good because it will feed into an algorithm somewhere where we might spot a trend where we can increase shareholder value. For the companies that don't have a legitimate reason, particularly as an academic, I take an active role in deliberately lying. There's no reason, when you fill out those forms, there is absolutely no reason to be truthful. So when you go to, now if it's applying for a bank account, you probably do need to give your correct, if you are applying, so if you're signing up for a restaurant, frequent visitor kind of scheme, lie about your birth date. For one of them, say your birthday's in January. For one of them, say your birthday's in February. For one of them, say your birthday's in March. Because in order to increase turnover, they will send you a birthday special offer, which you've already paid for because they've already included the cost of that in the fees that they charge everybody. So you might as well claim it. And you can't go to lots of restaurants in the month of your birthday. So lie.
You're giving those to me.
and spread particularly if you're coming up to a big birthday, spread all of the free bottles of champagne across the year. Now that's the flippant version, but the interesting version is that it's not a reaction to that's freaky, it's a reaction to why do you want this? And are you making money out of it in a way that I'm not going to benefit from? And that's kind of where that drawing the line becomes important. And that's where the potential implications for the algorithms become important. If you are going to profile someone's Facebook data, then it doesn't take very much effort for someone to say, I will have 2 Facebook profiles. One where I talk about studying very hard and being kind to children, and that's the one where mum and dad are friends. And then you have the other one with the wild parties, and that's the one that you don't give to US immigration, and you don't give to the recruitment agencies.
Is that against the user agreement with Facebook?
Yeah, but they can't, I don't think they can really, yes, technically it is, but I don't think they're ever going to enforce that. Everyone should have multiple Facebook accounts.
Let me give you...
and multiple LinkedIn profiles.
Flip response to that. I'll give you an Americanized kind of version of this. If you put a tracker on for me, for you take your Apple Watch or the ones I have here, and I know that you're walking 17,000 steps a day on average, that your heartbeat is this on average, that something else is going on, you're sleeping 7.5 hours a day, and you apply for health insurance from me, I'm going to say this guy's probably going to be healthier than somebody who doesn't do all that, and I'm going to offer that person a lower rate. There's your direct benefit for providing the information to a healthy benefit, but to the detriment of the people who are not healthy. Should the not healthy lifestyles be charged more for living than people who have healthy lifestyles?
Yes. So what I'm saying is that we're currently at the stage where I can opt out, right? I can go to a different insurance company. But the way it's going with companies not setting a line of where the moral boundary is here, how far they're willing to go, we're excelling at a ridiculous rate towards it where every insurance provider will use it.
the academic in me always worries about Marxist inevitabilities. It's not inevitable. So again, you gave the example of Apple. Apple have been very, very vocal about apparently putting privacy and user data concerns at the heart of their products, to the extent that they won't let the FBI unlock phones, because if they do that, it will have all sorts of consequences. So there are trends, but that's not an inevitability. And I think at that point, we need to pause so that we can move across to drinks. Otherwise, we're going to have a fantastic conversation and people are just going to say, I really would like a drink and a chance to chat to other people. So I'd just like to thank you all very, very much for participating, for listening to our questions. I'd like to thank once again our panelists, Catalina, Leila, and Michael, for such a fantastic and engaging event. For Karis, Stephanie, and the rest of the LSE team for making the event run so smoothly, and to all of you for your insightful comments and questions. Can we show our appreciation for the panel in the usual manner?